everyone, I'm Jane Hanlon again from the Mortgage Club Advise Wise, and welcome to today's Ask Jane. Joining me today is Richard Espley, Director of Equity Release from GWlegal. The question today from our panel solicitor is how existing face-to-face process is holding up with social distancing. We've all seen over the last few weeks people adapt to the needs of the business, and I'm going to look at 3 stages today of how this has been affected. Briefly cover the fact find and the presentation, but more importantly, the third part, the crucial part, being the legal part of the paperwork. Fact find. Advisors have had to adapt to the isolation of the majority of their clients being over the age where they have to isolate during this COVID period. The telephone has been obviously a useful tool, along with modern technology, some of which the clients find easier than others to use. Many of the compliance departments have requested that the advisor makes no physical contact, no face-to-face contact. However, they have to use modern technology where there's possible, and they like them to record any telephone or email traffic. Most of them have had to resort to standard mail, with obviously stuff going in and out of the post with follow-up telephone calls to the clients, which has proved somewhat difficult, especially if you've got a joint application where you've got 2 people that you would physically have to go through each section through. So it takes more time, but it does mean that business still can be written. The second point is the presentation, the producing the recommendation through the KFI, offering the advice and recommendation. That's more difficult and obviously a complicated document to take the client through, but most have succeeded. Some have decided to wait until they can do full face-to-face, but with the online processes with the lenders and the application has helped where there's no signatures required, means that applications can still proceed to lenders for them to attempt to do either a desktop or physical valuation in due course. I think the third stage is the legal stage, is most crucial. So I asked Richard, so how is face-to-face is holding up with social distances in his line of business? Over to you, Richard.
Well, thanks, Jane. We've been quite lucky, really, on the legal aspect of the advice, in that our advice has always been delivered in a very uniform fashion. So with a face-to-face requirement for equity release clients, we've not been as disrupted from the outset. Obviously, some financial advisors give advice by telephone, some give them by face-to-face meetings with the client, some do a combination of the 2, depending on the needs of the client. But having had that, initially starting off with that requirement to see a client face-to-face, we had a sort of a clear outline as to what we had to try and achieve via the social distancing. So, and I'll come on to the aspects of non-face-to-face in a moment. But so for us, we had to assess whether it was safe for us to go and see a client at home, and there's still a high portion of the population who are still self-isolating. Somebody mentioned the other day that there's still 20+ million people who are isolating at home and having very little contact or time outside. So processes and pipelines have been impacted, and it would be wrong to say they hadn't. But we've had to adapt the face-to-face meeting with the client at home, and to do that, really, we've had to introduce additional steps. So the first sort of port for us was whether are we still capable of delivering our legal advice with the client if we're not sitting on the couch discussing it with them at home, and that's our model normally, as with other experts in the equity release area. Home visiting clients for legal advice has been the norm for a number of years now. So we sort of set a model up where we would transfer the majority of that meeting onto a telephone call with the client, and then that would be the opportunity for the client to, ahead of that, the client would read and digest the information that's been sent out by the lender and our own report. but they would have a chance to read that ahead of that meeting with that telephone meeting with our solicitor. The solicitor would go through the offer with them in the normal way we would, what we call a home visit advice checklist, making sure that they understand and they're happy with the plan. And then we would arrange what we were keen to sort of deliver from the start was a socially distanced home visit. So by that, we mean a visit to the door, really, to pick up documentation that had already been completed, but primarily to witness their signature on a mortgage deed. Now, what we didn't know back at the end of March was that the weather was going to be so good. And we were blessed, really, because it really gave us a boost at the start of that quite quickly, solicitors and clients were able to adapt that to a socially distanced visit in the garden, sometimes through a window. And I was quite sceptical myself at the outset when we had discussions with the Equity Release Council that it would be difficult to deliver this to all clients, because some lived in flats and some lived in properties that weren't conducive to that sort of distancing. But actually, in all the sort of end-to-end process that we're involved with, from that sort of handover from their financial advisor, the clients sort of buy into this, and their ability to adapt, and also our own solicitors, has been really good. So it's been the one part of the process that when we get the opportunity, when we get the offer, we've been able to deliver that legal advice quite successfully.
Good. So do the clients, are they surprised that you're offering this service in this current climate?
Yeah, I think initially they were, and obviously there is a proportion of clients who are socially distancing and with underlying health issues, who weren't keen to meet anybody at all, and those, there've been a decent number of cases that have had to be parked, and some of those are still parked. Some clients have sort of grown into this sort of new normal, and attitudes have changed, but the primary thing has always got to be that is it safe for you to visit the client, and where there's underlying health conditions, we've obviously backed away, and there's no pressure on the clients there. Other clients have backed away because there's no need for the funding straight away. If it was a lifestyle choice where the money was needed quite quickly, a cruise, or they were thinking buying a new car, quite a lot of people have sort of put those plans on hold. But yeah, I'd say initially there was for a relatively short period, clients were unsure as to how it was going to be delivered. But I think once we've explained the process, and I think having a longer telephone conversation with them that would normally be based on the meeting in the house, has sort of set people's minds at rest. And we've also had occasions where we visited properties and clients haven't been at the stage where we thought perhaps they would be. And we've gone away and revisited that again with further calls and advice, and in some cases calls online as well, with Zoom type calls as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. So how do your mobile solicitors feel about it all? Because I mean, it's quite a change for them, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously we rely on that, rely on their buy-in from the start, really, that without them we wouldn't be able to deliver this. I think initially there was a worry about whether they would be allowed to travel, because if you remember in the first sort of 2 or 3 weeks of the lockdown, there was a lot of sort of focus on where people were going for their walks, or the trips that they were making, and some solicitors have been stopped and asked what the purpose of their trips were, but no problems with them achieving that end of getting to see clients. We have about 25 solicitors sort of working full time, seeing equity release clients at home throughout England and Wales, and I think probably 4 or 5 went into isolation themselves, or for either age or underlying health issues, or we had 1 or 2 as well who had young families, and they sort of went to the sort of self-imposed furlough, if you like, while they looked after families. But even they have returned now as sort of things have relaxed, and the solicitors have been, to be fair, really, really good. But then they have a wide experience of dealing and meeting clients, so that's been a real plus for us.
Good. So, I mean, has the process taken longer to achieve the end goal? And have you learned anything from this for the future on how to?
Well, the process is taking longer. So from a legal perspective, we're normally instructed at around the sort of time that that the client's application goes to the lender. But most of our work, as you'll understand, probably happens post-offer. So post-offer, I think with the lightening of traffic and clients being more available because they've been at home, we've seen turnaround times from sort of offer to home visit fall slightly, probably down by about a day overall. And we're talking, you know, a normal average here for an equity release solicitor is probably around 7 or 8 days, 6, 7, 8 days from offer to home visit, and probably saved about a day there. A lot of solicitors have found travel, particularly in the south, a lot easier. I'm sure that window's gone now, but certainly in the south it was good for a while. In fact, we have a couple of solicitors who do a lot of travel by train in and around London, and they were on the outskirts of London, and they were choosing to drive instead of take the train because it was easier for them to do so. So that side of it has been quicker, but the end to end has been delayed. For the sorts of reasons that you'd probably expect, in that most aspects of our life have been impacted by the virus, and it makes anything sort of slightly off centre to deal with lenders, existing charges, land registry, all those other areas have been impacted and causing delays, unfortunately.
So are they catching up now then, as you're seeing an improvement on the turnaround?
Yeah, I think initially major lenders, you know, the sort of high street banks and larger building societies went through an initial period of sort of adjustment, and they all appear to be back to normal now. There's still some impact with some smaller lenders where contact and obtaining redemption statements and the like are more difficult. You know, some issues related to title. I mean, the land registry initially was a bit of a closed door. Lots of very simple applications where, you know, typically with equity release, you might have a case where a deceased partner or husband or wife has passed away and they haven't been removed from the property. And that's the sort of thing that normally we could get resolved with a death certificate within 24 hours. Those sorts of applications were being delayed and just not being dealt with. Land registry are now open for business again, but they're still, I think the phone lines are only open in the mornings, and they will undoubtedly be impacted still by this. And some of the more acute problems where clients need independent legal advice for transfers, matrimonial issues, a lot of high street solicitors are struggling with sort of adapting their offices to dealing with clients, and are sort of closing the door on that prospect completely. So not back to where we want to be, but slowly but surely the number of sort of more heavily delayed cases is receding all the time. So hopefully that'll improve over the summer.
Good. So you're obviously a panel solicitor on our panel at Wise. So what are the benefits of actually using you as specialist solicitors to the advisor and to the client?
Okay, well, I think there's, you know, a lot of independent financial advisors will have good contacts in the legal industry, and will have solicitors who they've used for years and have always given them good service. And we're not really around to sort of shake up and break existing relationships. We can only sort of succeed or fail on our own efforts. I think the pandemic there was given a good illustration as to where experts have fared particularly well. Yeah. Ourselves, GWlegal and Ashford's, Peter Barton at Ashford's, have both been involved in the revised amended legislation for the non-face-to-face process that has been allowed through during the period of lockdown, where clients were able to still complete equity release cases without seeing a lawyer face-to-face. And that was deliberately created to accommodate high street solicitors who didn't have the resources and didn't have the infrastructure to do what we've been able to do, which is to adapt and deliver things more online, electronically, but also by doing that socially distanced home visit. Some solicitors were unable to carry on, either because the solicitors weren't prepared to meet with clients at the home or in their own office. So I think it's provided a good opportunity for us to sort of showcase the fact that we'll always do whatever we can to try and keep things moving and keep the clients getting the services they need, because throughout all this, people have still needed to complete their equity release plans because they need the money. So I think that's been a strength of the experts.
Good. So what can the advisors do to help the situation, both now and going forward, for someone like yourselves with their clients?
Well, we appreciate that advisors are massively impacted by the sort of infrastructure that they rely upon. Obviously, the lenders and surveyors, and there's been a lot of disruptions to the process for them and their clients, where they've had to sort of go down one road and come away because of desktop or physical valuations. These are all difficult things to manage for advisors and clients. I think if there's anything that we would say that could help from the legal process, it's just those sort of background questions around things that maybe in the past could be resolved within a few days or within a week. Things like location of title deeds, is the building's insurance policy up to date, do they have photographic ID that will be valid for the entirety of the equity release process. These are things that advisors are experienced and very usually very organised about, but where clients haven't necessarily updated them, that process of going through and updating them is taking longer than ever. So we are still seeing some cases impacted by those sort of smaller elements. So if the property's unregistered and the deeds are with the local solicitor, is that solicitor open? Is there any sort of avenue they can take to push that a bit quicker than perhaps normally? Because obviously a lot of solicitors going back into the high street offices now are going back and have got sort of 2 months worth of work to catch up on as well, 2 or 3 months worth of work to catch up on as well. So just maybe those sort of smaller things, they can dot the I's and cross the T's. That'll help.
That's really worth knowing, actually, because we can sort of manage expectations with the advisors and prime them for that, to be honest with you. So that's really useful for us at the club. My next point is your panel fee of £650. How does that compare in the open market?
Well, pretty good, I think. I think against the market as a whole, in terms of the volume of cases written, it's probably £200 or £300 less, an overall cost of £200 or £300 less, including VAT, than the majority of what the majority of customers are being charged. It's designed to give those club members a leg up, an advantage in the marketplace in terms of competition, because it is difficult with it's difficult out there to win cases, and often fees can be an issue that clients will look to. So yeah, we're happy to provide that incentive and to support the club members.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, I mean we feel that the 650 fee is excellent, to be honest with you,
yeah. Including VAT as well.
Yeah. And a home visit. So yeah, I mean, and I think as an industry as a whole has allowed the business to be transacted during this difficult period with the completions in lockdown. It's been fantastic, and like many other industries. So I think it shows the industry can adapt to meet the current needs and can adapt to make changes. So I think an excellent job done by all, don't you, Richard?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been involved with introducers, not so much with lenders, because they're obviously a sort of an arm's length distance with them and dealing with their solicitors, but certainly through the Equity Release Council and key stakeholders in the industry, everyone's really sort of pulled together to try and find a way to keep the market going. And while so many other industries, including financial services and mortgages as well have been impacted, the effort to keep things going, to keep this sort of avenue to help people's funding lines has been amazing, really. So a lot of work's been done for a relatively small benefit, but it's been done to sort of try and at least keep the doors open and keep business flowing. So yeah, it's been a really positive experience, and hopefully sharing expertise and looking at different ways, looking at things from a different angle and different ways to conduct the process will help us with, moving forward and how we deliver legal advice and financial advice in the future as well.
Yes, well, I think everything's changed, including this Zoom meeting that's being recorded.
Yes.
So I thank Richard for joining us today. It's been invaluable. I've learned a lot. So thank you very much, Richard. And hopefully our members will support you in using your specialist firm, GWlegal.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. So there we are, another Ask Jane session. If you have any more questions, we have had some already. Please keep submitting them through our website, advisewise.com. On the Upskill page, you can enter them in and press the button to submit, or simply just give me a call. We thank you for your time, and we do hope you've enjoyed this session on face-to-face and social distancing. Thank you.